Hey, we want to welcome you as we do each week to Power of Our Story. I get the privilege of hosting or moderating or facilitating the conversation on timeless leadership principles. And we get together and we talk about ideas about how to improve our capacity to lead others, whether we're leading a company or a family or a community group. Obviously, it's something that is it's an evergreen area of study. I think we'll never run out of opportunities to develop the capacity for leadership. And as we jump into the topic, I thought about as an introduction, leaders lead teams to create solutions and solve problems that get in the way. And one of the enemies of creativity is stress. And of course, stress comes to different people in many different ways. But one thing is for sure that stress produces in the human body cortisol. And without doing any kind of a deep dive into physiology on any level, but cortisol is usually associated with anxiety. And when you have any form of anxiety in your body, it literally has been shown to depress the parts of the brain that enable us to solve problems and to think creatively. So I think one of the roles of a great leadership team, and even I would say the culture of a company, is to create an atmosphere that combats stress. And I think one of the often overlooked solutions to stress and anxiety is laughter. And so I want to talk a little bit about laughter as a strategy. It's something that we really don't talk a lot about in corporate America. I don't know how many conversations you have about laughter as a way to actually improve not just the quality of life, which it will, but really specifically the capacity for people to do work. And I haven't come across a lot of conversations where people talk about this. And so I read an article recently in Fast Company on this topic. And if any of you are interested, I can put that link in the chat field. So interesting. 2017 in this particular article, Robert Half, I don't know what that source is, asked an undisclosed amount of executives if they believed a sense of humor is important for career advancement. What would you guess? What percentage of executives, now these are people that live at the top of the company, would say that yes, a sense of humor is absolutely important for career advancement. So we're talking about getting promoted. What would your guess be? I'll give you four choices: 25%, 50%, 75%, or 90%. Now these are executives talking about what they believe about humor and people actually getting promoted. Let's hear it.
I think it's pretty low in that arena.
Okay. So you're going for 25. Others?
25.
25?
I would say 75,
Okay.
but if it's sarcastic humor pointed at the company or internally, that'd probably be very low. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Others?
75.
Okay.
I'm going to say low. I'm going to go 25 too.
Okay.
That's funny. I would have thought like 90. Maybe I'm way off.
Baya, what's your guess, Baya?
I would say I would put it on the low. I would not say that it's really very common. I mean, at least from the people that I see in my office, they are much more stressed by their company, and it's much more serious than it's fun. So I mean, would not say that they will use laughter a lot.
Okay. Paul?
Yeah, 25.
Okay. G, did you wait?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the same. I would agree with the low,
Okay.
Before we go on, before you give the answer and I find out how wrong I am, or maybe not be, but before you give your answer, I think one of the reasons is people in authority over me and positions of authority over me, they have this sense of kind of ridiculing, like, and you got to be able to take it. It's like, oh, stay in your lane, little boy. And you got to be able to take that stuff and kind of gaff it off, because that's a way of testing whether or not they're safe with you.
Right. Right. Okay. Well, the correct answer is 91% specifically. Now, we don't know who these executives are. We don't know, was this 1,000? Was this 20? But it's interesting. It's in Fast Company. Fast Company, keeps space with Forbes, Inc. I mean, it's a very, very reputable magazine. So I'm very comfortable even citing this publicly, as this would be reflective of a demographic that we can trust, right?
I think so. Fast Company did a whole edition on why companies hate HR. Anyways.
So in a Gallup study in 2013, they asked 1 million people, this is a large sample, from 166 countries. They asked them this simple question. I'll ask you these too. Did you smile or laugh a lot? That's the key word, a lot, yesterday. Ron, did you smile or laugh a lot yesterday?
A lot. It's a personal philosophy that I share with my kids. When it's all said and done, I'd rather laugh than not.
Hey, well, you'd be a good politician because you didn't even answer the question.
Yes, a lot.
Are you running for office? Okay, good. Sarah?
Yesterday, I would say no, not a lot.
Okay. Jim?
Absolutely not.
Okay. G?
I actually did. I
Okay.
did, man. I
Ryan?
liked it good, yeah.
Good. Ryan?
Yes, I did actually.
Awesome. Maya?
I did smile some, but not laugh a lot. No.
Okay, then you don't get the grade. Don't cheat. Okay, Paul?
Yes.
Okay, me was no. And this is what they found from the study. In that million people, between the ages of 16 and 23, it was emphatically and overwhelmingly yes. And after 23 was a steep drop off. And then in the study, what age was statistically significant in life after 23 that people begin to laugh and smile a lot? What age in life, according to the study? Sarah, what's the age?
I think 50.
Okay. Jim, what do you think?
Over 60, I'm thinking.
Okay.
He was
Ryan?
looking it up, cheater.
I saw that. Ryan?
No.
Okay. Ryan, what's your number? Don't give me an over, give me an actual number.
30.
Okay. G?
I would say about 45.
Okay. Baya?
I don't know. I will say older though.
Oh, no. I need a number, Baya. Come on, be courageous. Let's go here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Give me a number.
maybe. Okay. 40.
Sorry?
You want a number? I give you a number, but I will say you have you need a number of years.
What's the number, Baya? Just give me a number. You're overthinking.
I gave you a number.
What is it? What was it? I didn't hear it. I'm sorry.
I told you 40. I told you 40.
40? 40? 40?
Yeah.
All right, Paul?
Well, the first 80 years of my child difficult, so I would say I really began to enjoy humor and laughter and all the rest of that at about the age of 65. But that was a long time ago.
According to 1 million people
Wait,
surveyed.
wait. Well, restate the question. I want to give you my answer.
You already weighed in, didn't you?
No,
You
not on that one. I thought you said
I'm
Ron
sorry.
has it.
that was the other
Ron has
I'm
question.
sorry, Ron. I'm sorry. Okay, so the question is, from 16 to 23, people laughed a lot. After 23, they stopped laughing a lot. They couldn't say it a lot, right? And it went down. And then it began to come up, and there was an age that they identified as, and the age, a marker where people started to laugh a lot again in life. What was, and they came up with a specific number, not a range.
60.
Okay. According to 1 million people surveyed, the answer is 70 years old. And here's the interesting thing. If you guys look up change curve, which I use in my coaching practice, it correlates perfectly. That according to the change curve, people achieve a renewed sense of happiness and fulfillment at age 72. And I think what they've correlated it to was they are, fully retired, they have money, and they are still in quote unquote relatively good health. And according to the demographic, at least in our country, after 73 years old is when people began to start to face medical challenges that began to decrease their well-being and their quality of life. And so 72 was the magic number in this one particular tool. So, but
Right.
Anyway, I find it interesting though, if we're picking this up, right, that we're talking about laughter and its ability to help people create and solve problems. And as we can see from the data, it's not happening. And why would be your guess? Why does this not happen at work? Why is humor not a?
I think that one of the things that you mentioned, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you said this involved a lot of countries.
Yes, 166.
Okay. And I think that part of it is determined by the culture of that country.
It's great.
And countries that are controlled by their governments tend not to have as much joy and laughter and all the rest of that. Companies who have the freedom to do so, people who have the freedom to do so, tend to have more opportunity and feel more free to laugh and experience joy. And so I think part of the issue is how many of those countries were free and how many were not.
A great insight.
I think in the business world, and actually even the world I worked in, I think the issue is it oftentimes can go beyond what is correct and results in negative outcome, and so those lead to a fear type of a thing, to where people feel that all they can be is serious and not have fun, or that type of thing.
Yeah.
So if I step in, go ahead, Baya. I'm sorry.
I think it depends also of how much people are fragile. I do believe that the more you have a real sense of self and a real confidence. And when I say confidence, I don't mean a persona. I mean you can laugh about yourself. So for me, when you have true confidence, there's a level of humility with it, where you don't take yourself too seriously. You are serious, but you take yourself seriously. And so you can really, it's great, it's okay to laugh, and it's okay to tease one another in a gentle way. But I think in an environment where there's more a persona and more, you're trying more to prove yourself, there's less true confidence and humility in the sense that, I have to learn, I do everything, then it creates an environment where there's more possibility for playfulness, and I put laughing in that part where you're not taking yourself seriously.
It's great. Really well said.
Yeah, Joe, I will jump in on there. So I'm a fourth quarter guy. So first quarter 0 to 20, second quarter 20 to 40, 40 to 60, 60 to 80. Some people go into overtime. Some people get taken out of the game early. I'll just leave it at that. So what I find is the real slog is the second and third quarter. Those are the tough. The first quarter, you're just energized by excitement and wonder of life, like the possibilities. And then you've already experienced it, and you're finding out how you're gonna finish in that fourth quarter. And I think that relieves you of like the childbearing ages, the work and building a home, acquiring a home, and being stable. That's the work of stabilizing. And going backwards, I kind of wish I had focused less on that along the way if I were to have a regret, and more on enjoying it along the way. But that's kind of my idea right now, the most that can go wrong is, I've already lived most of my life statistically. So I'm there, and so I can relax a little bit and be can be pretty predictable of how things are going to turn out. And predictability is one, and people want things to be predictable and sameness along the way. And this, like, I want tomorrow to be not much different from today, and then I can live happily. And I think that's a kind of a general rule with people.
Yeah. One quick comment on that, Ron, and Baya knows the exact data and the research behind this, but if I'm not mistaken, somewhere north of 90% of most of the thoughts that we have from day to day are the same ones we had the day before and the day before and the day before. It's a very small amount of new information. And that's why the mind gets wired, and like sometimes we wonder why we feel the way we feel or we do what we do. It's because we're rehearsing and reinforcing the same collection of 90% of ideas. And then, of course, we have that one thought like, hey, maybe I'll meet a friend for coffee in 2 hours, or hey, maybe I'll read that book that's, but it's one thought compared to several hundred others that are being rehearsed. And so that's a separate topic. For some reason you jog that.
That's right, because people will tell me I've got 30 years of experience in this company, and in my mind I'm thinking, no, you got 3 years of experience that you repeated for another 27 years.
There's the cold bucket of truth that we don't want thrown on us at any point in time. Okay, Ryan, you were unmiked. Your thoughts on this, Ryan? Did you have some thoughts?
So I agree with Paul. I think it does depend on societal norms, depending on where you are, since this study was based off of many different countries and stuff like that, because, certain countries you can't say certain things or you'll be executed. I had to bite my tongue when you initially said it, because like my first whole thing went to like our current generation and how it wasn't how it was when I first started as my job or whatever else. So but I think things change. It's the old saying, things change, things stay the same kind of thing. But I think when it comes to like, especially in the workplace, I think that's a culture that just you go into a family business. The culture of that family business is carried on from generation to generation to generation. We get into that's the way we've always done it kind of mindset. Or you go to, where I'm here in the South, and I just use my job as an example because that's what I'm familiar with, where you go to a law enforcement agency, small agency that's been around since the 1800s. It's the good old boy. That's the way we've always done it. This is, if they say this, so I think it's a culture. There's a lot of things you can throw in the pot, whether it's cultural, societal, you know, personal preferences, personal outlooks, generational. And I think it's just having where we kind of the root of our conversations every week is leadership, having leadership at the top to really start that culture of being able to have that laughter in the workplace and things like that. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Yeah. And to springboard off that, Ryan, this is to the entire group, you know, is how do you achieve that? And especially how do you achieve that in some of the professions where, like, if I'm going to go in and I'm going to have back surgery, I don't know if I want to go in to be wheeled into an operating room and have a bunch of people laughing, or, you know, if my house is on fire, I don't know if I want to have Jim and his buddies show up with a fire hose and they're all spilling out after, you know. So you know, how do you, obviously it's a case by case, but how do you integrate humor in order to help people do better in life at work? I know it's a very open conversation, but how does that work?
I mean, I don't think people could talk to each other the way we talk to each other at, like, say, the firehouse or the police department in, you know, corporate America. I think there's a fine line, and I mean, you know, now we're in the society of, like, I mean, I'm just gonna use our country because that's how I'm familiar with, but you know, we're always in that fine line now where everything needs a policy, a procedure, you know, don't do this, don't do that, don't say this, don't say that kind of, you know, order. But I think I mean, I think it starts at the top, and I think, you know, culture in any kind of organization, it starts at the top and works its way down. I mean, I've always contrasted that too, to where, you know, being a rank and file guy in my career field, the culture starts at the bottom and it works its way through to the top if you really want to go there too. So I think it's finding, you know, subordinates, line level employees to meet in the middle with their executives and their CEOs and finding somewhere to that common ground. So I don't know. I don't have that answer. I mean, I think I think it's a case by case and a business by business and workplace by workplace thing that, you know, everybody has their root causes and their reasons of why there's either no laughter or maybe a little more than inappropriate humor in the workplace. So
I think to what Ryan said, you know, the culture I worked in and grew up in for decades, you know, and I was a party to things in the early part of my career that, you know, as we evolved over the years, when I became an executive in the organizations, I told people, you know, I don't want to be hypocritical, but I could tell you that there are things that went on in the early parts of my career. If you do that today, you might as well just clean out your locker when you leave today because you're not coming back to work. You know, it was inappropriate, right? You know, but in the times it was something that was tolerated or whatever, you know, and that type of thing. And I think we've come a long way to get to the point where we are more in line with what is acceptable in society. I mean, we probably still do some things in those professions that aren't acceptable in general society. And when it comes to the surface, you know, it turns into a big deal. And so I think I mean, that just was my experience. But I don't think in that process that we took all of the fun out of that work environment.
Right. Yeah. And just to quickly respond, and I'll flip it over to Paul. You know, I think the starting point of this conversation in this era is what we might call appropriate humor. And I understand that even that is a little touchy because what one person considers appropriate, another person might not consider appropriate. But I like the starting point of, we're talking about not a crass, divisive, racial, ethnic, anything that could be potentially divisive, but we're talking about the idea that humor and laughter is something that actually creates a higher level of cognitive function because it pushes the stress out of a room. And so, you know, if you look at the science behind it, the science is there. This is a real topic. I think it is up to a leadership team to figure out what does that look like for us to integrate that into the company. But I go back to what Jim said, and I believe I know the same things. I've said and done things in the 90s that would have gotten me fired immediately today, because it's a different era, right? But I think we're trying to start at a point now where we're finding the kind of experience for people that they can enjoy and laugh to promote good outcomes. Okay, Paul, and then again, Ron has got his hand up again. So Paul, and then Baya.
First off, I second absolutely everything Jim has said about then versus now, and some of the things that we got away with that would not be tolerated at all today. And secondly, Joel, you mentioned the issue of being wheeled into the operating room or having somebody show up to fight a fire or something like that. And I think that those are event determinants about what your level of humor is. And I think that we have to be a little careful about that, because frankly, I've been wheeled into the operating room a number of times in my life, and not once did anybody have any tears in their eyes, which to me was encouraging. And occasionally they would tell you jokes and things like that to just try to let sense of what you're going into. And then by the time you hit the threshold of the operating room, you're out anyway. So, but the point is, it's a situational issue. And I've been retired for 30 years now. And during that time, I have always had a purpose in life, and that was to locate runaway teens, non-custodial parental abductees, and that sort of thing. And I have some pretty strong values. They start out with faith, family, community, education, vocation, and legacy. And I use those as a guide for my behavior. And probably 15 years ago, I sat down one day and figured out that if you lived your life in gratitude instead of agony, you'd open up a whole lot of synapses up there and things would happen. And I tell people without hesitating that if you're having a tough day, sit down and write out a list of all the things you're grateful for. And by the time you get through with that list, you will have a different mindset. And I'll leave it at that because I know other people have comments to make.
Well said. Thank you. Thank you, Paul. As always, well said. All right. It's either Ron or Baya. I'll leave it up to Ron.
Go by it. I'll go next because you'll say everything I'm going to say anyways.
Now, see, there's a sense of humor. And it brought laughter. Look at the faces.
That's funny. Okay, thank you. I will say, the first thing that I will say is there's three levels. There's the personal level, and I think Paul talked about it, is who you are, how your attitude in life, and what attitude you cultivate. If it's an attitude of gratitude, if it's an attitude of entitlement, it's going to put you in a different category when it comes to your heart and your joy and your ability to enjoy and to love. I will say the other two levels, I will call it the company culture and also the bigger society culture that are also very important. On the company culture, I remember being in a company where the leader had a good sense of humor and a lot of respect for other people, and he was not taking himself seriously. And I mean, everybody, we're still friends. People from this company were still friends because there was such an environment where people could blossom, and there was a good level of trust for every person, ability and competence, but also an attitude of helping other people grow. And I call it an attitude of collaboration. You cannot be you cannot have a lot of humor and laughter in an environment of competitiveness. It comes with collaboration. And then I think also the big level is the society level. It's difficult when you are in an environment where there's, you cancel culture, microaggression. If you don't think like me, you're my enemy. I hate you. So the bigger culture also affects the companies because companies have to respond within a bigger culture. So I think there's levels there that are very important, and I think it's I hope we can recover from happening in the culture because it's not really conducive to laughter and I will say candid connection.
Baya, I like how you start with the heart. Start with the heart. I mean that I just thought that, but you probably said it before. Start with the heart. I look back at my life at how silly some of the ways I acted were. I mean, just silly. Why would I even think that? I think some people don't get humor. They just don't get it. And I read this real serious journal, and I think they call it the Reader's Digest. And they say laughter is the best medicine. I did a thing. I started reviewing laughter is medicine. Okay. And how that laughter is medicine. And and when we laugh, I might get the terms wrong, but they might be that my affect might be dull and flat if I don't laugh, you know? So if I'm not laughing, my affect, the way I project can be dull and flat. The other thing is that life can be so horrible at times that if I don't laugh, I will explode. I just will absolutely explode. And if it's going to go bad, I might as well go out laughing. It's kind of the way I've done it. And people confuse that laughter and sarcasm as I'm not serious. I'm absolutely serious, but I'm serious to the point that I can be sarcastic, and it actually cements and hardens things in my brain of how to go at things. And if TV and movies are a picture of real life, just watch some of these medical surgeon things of how they got music going on and they're laughing and they're talking about stupid stuff. But in Reader's Digest, they said the brain never works harder than when you get humor, when you get a joke, because you have to use logical brain and creative brain to get the humor. And our brains are probably at their best when we're logical and humorous at the same time. And when we get into this humor kind of thing, by the way, yesterday was one of the most frustrating days I've had at work in months. And all I could do was laugh. All I could do was smile because I was going to blow up. But our left and right brain connects, but our heart, mind, and brain connect. So it connects us top to bottom from our belly to our brain, and from our left to our right side of our brain. So it really is full connectivity when in that laughter and humor. Laughter is medicine. We'd gone through, I mean, we're a bunch of clinicians, and we had gone through this thing where we do this mindfulness exercise, and everybody's solemn and quiet, and all of this mood music, and it's just, I've smelled enough of it that I know what it is. But so the next time I came back, I said, I want to do something. I want to do a special icebreaker. And so we started it, and I said, and I gave some of the illustrations about laughter as medicine. And then I led us in a laugh session for 2 minutes. And I mean, I just started laughing. Then we started laughing at each other and with each other and because of each other and the group. And then at the end of that, how did that feel? I've never felt more free in my life. I've never felt more connected to my environment than I did then. But do a 2-minute laughter drill with people in a group, and it will set the tone that you can absolutely be creative for the rest of the session.
You're muted, Joel.
Gosh. Before I flip it, thank you. Before I wanted to provide a moment of comedy for you. Before I flip it over to Paul had his hand up. I just want to leave you with a couple of thoughts, and it springboards off of what Ron said in my little cursory, review of this topic. Is they're talking about find a way to integrate humor into meetings. Maybe you can't integrate them into showing up and fighting a fire, but you can certainly put them in the front of your meetings. And you just have to find culturally what works and what makes sense. And don't forget, when people go through tough times, if it's done appropriately, to recommend and suggest that they find something that makes them laugh to lift their spirits temporarily. Is it going to solve the problem? Probably not, but it helps people. It helps people move forward. And it is a very powerful approach to getting reconnected to themselves and to their world. And then one of the other suggestions was, finding ways to use humor combined with people's achievements. And I've seen a lot of people do a lot of creative things with awards, but they're talking about making it a more of an intentional effort. And of course, it comes back to the leaders of the company. If they don't believe in that, this is not going to happen. But I think you can't deny the science, and you can't deny the surveys. This is tangible data that's telling us when we're put in a place where our cortisol levels are low, and we are relaxed and we are more buoyant, we do better solving problems and creating solutions to challenges. And so there you have it. Great being together. I'm going to sign off, and then Paul's got the next comment. Great seeing you guys. We'll see you next week.